Thank you, Yanis, for joining us in today's thought leadership webcast. And Yanis is here to discuss about practicing responsible AI from discussing it. So, how do we actually practice responsible AI in organizations? So, before that, let me have a good introduction for him. Yanis Kanelopoulos is an entrepreneur, active member of the startup community, and one of the few AI experts in Greece with more than 17 years of experience in evaluating large scale software systems. Back in 2018, he founded Code for Thought, one of the first startups to offer AI testing and auditing services in the country. Since then, the company has acquired numerous awards, including the 2022 Take Rocket Ship Award in their AI category, as well as a solid client list, ensuring that AI systems are responsible and can be trusted. I don't think we can have any more person who is more expert than Yanis, and it is a really a very privilege and honor to have him here. Yeah, so let's get started. Yanis, can get started with what is Code for Thought and how have you introduced responsible AI in Code for Thought?
Okay. Hi, Sarmista. Good morning to everyone. Thank you for the invitation. I really appreciate it. Code for Thought was it started back in 2017. Our initial, let's say, we started as a company who has expertise on assessing large-scale software systems and especially their technical quality and architecture. And by large-scale software systems, we mean mainly traditional systems that they have, let's say, millions of lines of code behind them, like an electronic, like a web banking or a mobile banking application or a billing application in the telecoms. And we are pretty good at that. And then we started developing some curiosity about AI systems because an AI system may carry way less lines of code behind it.
Mhm.
So in order to test it, you need to find new ways and you need to understand what is important there. And by doing our research, we realized that an AI system makes
Mhm.
way more critical decisions than a typical software system. It handles way more data and more sensitive data, and the results it provides are mostly probabilistic. They are based on some inference, some predictions, and not on deterministic instructions behind them as a typical system. A good example, since I started with the banking sector, is of course the credit scoring system. So, and there we realized that in order to be able to test it and say if a model is good or bad, you have to test properties like fairness, like transparency, slash explainability, like robustness, all those things that mostly characterize the behavior of the model, the nature of the data, rather than the quality of the code or the architecture of the system. So we liked it very much, and then we started building technology to help us in do our audits. And and if I have to say something about why we started Code for Thought in the first place, I would say personal experiences. So way back in 2010, I was a PhD student. I wanted to travel abroad. I need to have a credit card. I did and applied for that in two different banks here in Greece. One bank rejected my application, and the other one approved two credit cards for me, each of them for 6,000 euro. So very contradicting. And when I asked an explanation from both banks, why did you give me so much credit? And the other bank, why did you reject my application? The answer I got was that we're not obliged to tell you anything. This is a commercial secret. This is a policy of the bank. We cannot disclose it. So thankfully, I didn't have any disruptions with my traveling or anything. Actually, I was more than I didn't have anything a very serious disruption. But nevertheless, the feeling remained that we are in the mercy of some decisions that we cannot affect, and we cannot also explain or protect ourselves against them. So the idea stayed, and nowadays it has been transformed into Code for Thought.
Okay, nice. So actually, how do you handle? Means we have understood the 7 pillars of responsible AI that which the EU has come out, that EU Commission has come out, and even the corresponding pillars also do exist in other countries. So can you enlighten us how do you handle robustness? So if I design a model, do you test it for robustness, or is it like there is certain protocols or procedures? How do you handle each of this? Let's start with robustness.
Right. I think that all those principles are interrelated to each other, and there needs to be a certain balance. But robustness, especially, it is strongly related with the safety and the security of a model. I mean, we can talk for hours about that. Based on but we are a little bit driven also about what our clients ask. So in our discussions right now, we test for robustness mainly by doing the so-called adversarial attacks. So let's just say that
Mhm.
you have an image model, you want to add some noise to the pictures, and you want to see how robust the model remains despite the noise. And this is what we are currently working with our team in this area. Of course, there are more there. There are more types of attacks. There are more risky areas that one shall look like data poisoning and attacks within this type of let's say this kind of attacks anyway. So we try to enrich our knowledge on those. We try to also enrich our tooling by adding more types of tests and attacks in this area. But mainly what we are focusing is how one can affect the behavior of a model, either by changing the data or adding noise to the data, in order to be able in order to be able to deduct if a model is safe or not. But an important thing here is that, and this is what we try to do, is when we do a test, we try to do it in a comprehensive way. So we want to test a model and data for its performance, for the existence of bias. We try to generate also explanations to understand how the model behaves, is especially in image, let's say in healthcare, when you have, let's say, a tumor, you want the model to focus, and the tumor is in the center of the image. You want the model to focus on the center and not on the background, because we have all those cases that models were very good in understanding the background and not the center of the image, and they were not working as supposed to. So we try to do all those things. So all those tests in combination, in order to be able to deduct a holistic idea or a holistic picture of the model's quality and trust level.
Okay. So these adversarial score or the clever scores, which we usually do we need to evaluate for each and every model, or is it like we do a end-to-end study and see versus accuracy how the model is performing with some attacks and see?
We try to do it in an end-to-end way. We try to run our tests in parallel, let's say for performance, for bias, for explanation, for robustness, and then we combine the results in order to provide a picture, to provide a holistic picture of the model.
all all the
Yes,
parameters, all the
yes,
parameters, right? And then
yes.
based on so the platform, do you have a platform, or is it like you're doing is it you use custom or software tools, and then do you also allow the user to tweak some of the parameters and see what based on the business use case, where or the person wants to have it a little more.
That's this is a very good question, because it gives me room to develop more our philosophy behind our tooling. So we started, of course, by doing some custom scripts or stuff to do our job. But then
Mhm.
we decided to start investing in building our own technology. So we have a platform which is called Pythia,
Mm.
which is a concatenation between Python, the language, the technology that we use to build it, and Pythia was the name of the Oracle of Delphi in
Mm.
ancient Greece. So And currently, the first, let's say, operational version of Pythia is supporting image datasets. But in our roadmap, of course, we are going to incorporate more types of models, data, and use cases. And but in general, we have the capability to assess any type of system and the knowledge. The nice thing we or let's say what we realized about testing and auditing an AI system is that, and we kind of this is what we do. I mean, we want to support the so-called last mile analytics. And what does actually this mean? It means that you have a team that builds the model, they implement it, they do everything, and just before the model goes into production, they give the model to an independent team. It can be an independent team within an organization, but can be an external team to test the model in a comprehensive way and with their own criteria, with their own, let's say, viewpoint, and see if the model has any problems and deduct the problems and provide the recommendations to fix them before it goes to production. So Pythia was built with this viewpoint in mind, that an external team will take the model and test it in an independent way and see what are the problems.
Mm-hmm.
So the tester, the external tester, the independent tester sets the criteria, of course, in collaboration with the team, but we want the testing to be independent, because what we see is that when most of the teams they try to solve a business problem and they optimize for that. They want to build a solution that can go to production and at the end of the day solve a business problem, bring revenue to the company, or do something that the business wants. So the whole concept of trustworthiness or quality comes second, and more or less this is what is happening in the industry nowadays. So by giving them your model to an external team to test it, then it's easier for them to think outside of the box, to bring their own perspective, test it in more, let's say, in more strict criteria, or in more objective criteria, and then you can have a better picture of your model and a better way to fix it.
Yeah.
So Pythia then is serving that purpose, the last mile analytics. And the other thing that we see, at least in Europe, is several companies, they want to have this kind of tooling, ideally integrated in their own environment, or let's say deployed in their own environment. They're not in favor of a SaaS solution because with all this GDPR regulation, everyone is afraid to even the testing data to send them outside their premises, let's say. So the idea then is to have a tool that can be deployed there, and then somebody, either let's say somebody trained from Code for Thought, or or even us in certain cases, we can utilize the tool to do the tests and the audits.
Nice. So, how do you do vulnerability analysis? Is it like when you create an image, you do some image checking, or how does it work? Or is
The
it adversarial attacks checking? How does vulnerability analysis works here?
Well, the main idea is that by trying to add some noise to the pictures with certain types of attacks, we try to see what is the level, what is the lowest level of noise that can have the maximum impact on. But by maximum impact, we mean changing the decision of the model. So this is more or less what we try to do. In a lot of cases, we also, as I said, we're focusing to the model itself, because if you want to see to do a vulnerability analysis from a, let's say, more complete way, you have to see the processes the team follows. You have to see the infrastructure that the system runs. You have to understand also what are the security policies about infrastructure, and also the code behind the system, or all the code that, let's say, that does the ETL tasks, extraction, task loading, how safe this code is, what are the third-party libraries the team might be using that they have, let's say, vulnerabilities themselves, so they are more exposed. So if you really want to see security from a more holistic point of view, there are more to see there, and not only the model itself.
Right, right. So there are many things from apart from the like that a platform that we need to
Mm-hmm.
check
Yes.
rather than the model, because even if the model is correct, if there is an attack, white box attacks from outside, Persian attack or evasion attack, then the model goes. Ultimately, we will lose the confidential information with which the model is trained. So that
Yeah.
absolutely makes a sense. Yeah. And how do you certify? Means I see that Code for Thought has been very well known for certifying models. So how
We
do you certify? Yeah.
we what we do as an to okay. The main idea is not the certification. We're not a certification body ourselves, but we work with certification bodies such as TUVIT in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
But there are but the fact that we as a company are remain objective in the sense that we're not building AI, we're not implementing AI systems on behalf of our clients. So our expertise is purely testing and auditing AI systems. In that way, we are impartial. So if, let's say, a company wants to have an independent report about the status of their AI system, then we can provide such report. Also, in our tests, we utilize the terminology and in general the definitions stipulated by ISO 29119/11, which is the ISO that provides guidelines for testing AI systems. So that makes our, let's say, analysis and also our reports, they have, let's say, a certain point of reference behind them. And that helps. Let's say the most of the projects that we do, the clients are happy enough by receiving a report from us and not a formal certification. Of course, for more high risk systems and of high criticality and a different type of gravity, when a formal certification is required, then there we work with certification bodies such as TUVIT.
Okay.
And there the process, I mean, the experience that we have is the process is more rigid. The requirements are, let's say, are strictly defined. So in a typical assessment that we do, somebody would say, can you tell me what is wrong and how can I fix it? Let's just say it in a general way. But when you do a certification, then all the criteria should be measurable, should be very concretely defined in order to be able to certify it.
Right.
A good point, a good example of that, which is not something we've done so far, but I think it is interesting for the community to know and discuss, is the upcoming New York City bias law. I'm not sure, I don't know if you or anyone from our audience knows about it. The city of New York has passed a law that that makes compulsory for any HR software vendor
Mm-hmm.
that develops software which in a way scores either, employees either for hiring or for promoting or for any other of type of activity within the HR domain, they have to undergo a bias audit, um, and the criteria for the audit are defined by the legislation. So there is the need to, there is a disparate impact ratio that needs to be examined. So you have to test the model for disparities. There are certain thresholds, certain ways to calculate, let's just say, the the disparities. So it makes it very strict and very
Mm-hmm.
well defined. So essentially, somebody can also certify that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So and as we know that the hiring tool from Amazon was scrapped off, right? It had so much bias. It's
Exactly.
absolutely makes
Yes.
sense to develop such laws and have the audits properly in place. So that's what is it you are calling value added audit, is it, or is there is anything else that we can do when in the audit process?
Um, what we, I mean, let's just say if you ask us, the secret for a good audit is to involve also the team that develops the model. So
Mhm.
a good audit needs, let's say, to involve all stakeholders, and especially the ones who are building, who are in the center of the audit. And in our let's say way of working, when we start a project, we sit down together with the engineering team and we want to understand the context behind the design decisions. Also, we try to sit down with the business people to understand what the system does, what is the business problem it solves. So then we get better context, also the social and the business context, not just the technical.
Mhm.
We want to understand also the maturity of the team and their, let's say, ability to implement and manage a model in a responsible way. So we do that via a series of interviews, which are kind of time boxed, and because we don't want to take lots of time from the teams, because we have more urgent things to do. So and then. And then soon as we have the first results from our analysis, we go back to them and we validate them. So when we finish by the end of the project, the whole, let's say, the technical results, the technical analysis is already validated with the team. So we make sure that there are no, let's say, loose ends or things that we haven't discussed with the team before we come back with the final, let's say, result.
Mhm. That makes more value to it, right? Because if you are actually going through the entire process that organization is building the model and why they are building it, and then maybe there could be loopholes at any process, and starting from the requirement analysis to getting the data, selecting the right data sets, parameters, and training the model. So you are understanding the end-to-end process without auditing the system. Yeah, that really makes more sense to audit.
But
Give it.
for us, I mean, what you should say depicts actually what we also think, because we want the audit. We don't want to do an audit to check, just to tick a checkbox. We want the
Right.
audit to provide actual value to the team, because then that's how the audit can be successful and more valuable for the client in the end.
Hmm. And then how you are doing the risk assessment as per the EU law AI Act. There are different categories of systems, right? High risk, medium risk,
Mhm.
and low risk. So are these processes same, or for high risk processes the audit is more stringent, there are more parameters attached to it? uh, what what is the general way that your code for thought handles it?
So, well, I like your questions, Armista, because they are, let's say, I can talk for hours for each of them. So, s- currently, now that the legislation hasn't arrived yet, we have more projects with companies who proactively want to do something. So then there are more, let's say, relaxed in a way. There's no the time emergency that we need to comply tomorrow. So just to get a general feeling right now, what can be an audit and what are the things that we can do. So, for instance, we did a couple of projects with some large organizations, and they didn't give us the most critical AI systems. They gave us AI systems of, let's say, lowest criticality, but they do that to test the waters. So we give you these models, you do the audit, you tell us what you can find,
Hmm.
and then if we feel more, let's say, comfortable with how this whole process, this whole idea, then we can do the most stringent and the strictest, let's say, audits in our more high risk models. What we also see in the market is that we have clients that, since they understand the value of an audit, they want the exhaustive audit. They don't just want something that will tick the box. It's like,
Okay.
go the whole way, because this will give us value in the end.
Mm-hmm.
So, but nevertheless, the the and the choice of those properties that we discussed before, like fairness or vulnerabilities or the safety, all these are properties that they are common in all regulations. So
Mm-hmm.
if, let's say, you look in United States or EU or let's say in the UK, you see that all those notions, all those concepts, expressed in different wording sometimes, but they're there, and that is why we
Yes.
focus on all these.
Yeah, so all the countries I think have come up with
Mm.
laws which some way or other way focus on all the different parts of it. And also,
Yes.
are you also
Oh,
looking on sustainability, or like how much environmental damage the systems are doing? Because unnecessarily maybe they may be training deep learning models which may not be needed. So,
right. We don't look on the greenness side of sustainability,
mhm.
but what we look is, of course, for the social impact. So if I, if I'm an organization who uses demographics for
Mhm.
in their models to make decisions, you want to make sure that the models are making decisions as objectively as possible. So
Okay, so
from an ESG perspective, I would say we look more on the social aspect rather than on the environmental aspect.
social aspect meaning what's this organization doing, why it is developing that model, is it considering all the demographics or anything else are you considering from social aspect?
No, let's just say that a financial organization is using demographics.
Mm-hmm.
And there are the point is, well, yeah, are they doing any harm to certain categories, or the algorithms and the models are working as they're
Or,
supposed to?
mm-hmm. Makes
Of
sense.
course,
Yeah.
the idea about the greenness, let's just say, on a model is quite compelling. It's very useful, but so far we haven't developed expertise on that area, to be honest.
Okay.
But
Makes
I'm
sense.
curious about that. I'm very curious, if you ask me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That may be also a point. Like considering all the cloud providers are going green, at least claiming to go green by 2025 or 2030. Then we can, if we can see how we can develop those solutions, which also consider on the green scorecard, that will be really amazing as for as a
Yeah,
community and as an environment.
that's definitely what we need.
Yeah. And how do you, definitely you have encountered many challenges while all doing all those audits, testing. So can you talk about something which will help us to understand that how do we overcome the challenge? How did you overcome the such challenges?
Um, okay, that's the challenges can be at two levels. It can be at the first level, at the business side, somebody needs to be convinced about the value of the audit,
Mm-hmm.
and also to realize that the systems they're building, they have serious impact, because still there are companies that are developing software that has impact, but they don't even realize that. And also be convinced about just about the value of the audit, but the need of the audit, because we also see companies that they do their best to avoid an audit,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then there are the technical challenges, in the sense that companies do not want to send data outside their premises. They're not willing to give you access to their model because they don't have APIs, so they don't want to give you the artifact and do the tests there. So there are challenges, and we try to overcome them. Especially the technical ones, we are willing to, let's say, set up Pythia in that the premise of the client, and work there. We try also to explain, but that the less you give us, the more value, the less value we can provide you. And if we find problems in, let's say, in a high level, if we don't have more specific information, we cannot deep dive and tell you what is the cause, what are the root cause of the problem. So, in if you ask me, there needs to be a constant communication with clients and prospects to understand the value they get, and how they can help you to help them.
Definitely. So that would really add a different perspective of seeing that how when we are stuck with a problem that we can overcome the challenges.
Yeah. I see we have a question.
Question. Yeah, sir, is there any difference between trustworthy ML and responsible AI?
Well, that's yeah. I mean, if you ask me simplistically, I would say these terms are being used interchangeably.
Interchangeable.
Lots of people use trustworthy AI and responsible AI in the same way. If we want to analyze the semantics, responsible means mostly that somebody has taken care all the aspects that affect the behavior of an AI system, so it's more proactive. And trustworthy is that somebody did the analysis and deemed your model trustworthy. So semantically speaking, I would say that the responsible AI is more proactive and trustworthy AI is more reactive as a term. But let's say for the sake of simplicity, if one uses them interchangeably, I wouldn't mind.
Yeah. So this has been, I think I have also been asked this question so many times, and I don't see any difference other than being responsible, being you are being owning your accounting, being accountable
Exactly.
for the purpose that you are building it. Yeah, and trustworthy is just at least you are ensuring the model is build it with trust. It doesn't show that you are accountable for that building that model. So that's the
Yeah.
same difference I would also say, that being responsible. Yeah. And Yanis, I think code for thought. I saw that many of the materials which you have shared, like it does explainability analysis while debugging the models. So how do you guide your customers, or how do you guide your clients that with debugging steps that the model comes become more explainable, or do they you go back and ask them that this is not explaining, you have to rectify the models? How does it work?
Okay. We do. I mean, let's say when we do an evaluation and we deduct, we have a formula and we deduct trust level, explainability is not taking part on the score. And everybody asks us about it. And I say, I mean, you cannot actually score the explainability of a model in the sense that uh, even if you score it today, if the team doesn't have any explanation mechanisms, the, simply the model cannot be explainable. So, but for the sake of testing, we generate explanations which we look together with our client and we use them in a way to actually understand the behavior of the model and see if there are issues that need debugging. The example I gave you before with the background versus the center of the image and which part of the image plays more important role is an indication about that, on how you can use the explanations to debug your model. Another example is, let's just say, again, from the financial sector, if you have a credit scoring model which uses demographics, by doing, let's say, feature importance or supply value analysis, you want there to see if any demographic attribute plays significant role in the decision. And
Definitely.
yeah,
Oh,
so
sensitive attributes. Yeah,
yes,
sensitive age.
yes, exactly.
Mhm. Yeah, and also I think you have talked about lot about ML specific risks like physical, logical, perturbation. I understand, adversarial. I understand, but how do you talk about physical and logical risks? Means, are you talking about cloud and the infra that needs to be taken care of, other than the
Yeah.
getting the model in place?
Yeah, as I said, when, let's say, if you want to see security in a holistic way, then you not just not don't then you just cannot just see the model, but you have to see also the infrastructure, the premises, also who has physical access to what. I remember we did a project for a company that is on the healthcare sector. Privacy is of paramount importance for them. So the whole, let's say, algorithm was running in an isolated physical server in their own premises, which there was no internet connection. And if you want to do something with the machine, you had to physically enter that room and and interact with it and play it or train it. So all this all those aspects play a role when you are assessing the security and the vulnerabilities of a model, because you sometimes you need to see the whole system plus the infrastructure.
Yeah. So there's a question from county, like there are multiple models that are built on a certain specific problem and on a certain specific data set. When the XI or the experimental methods are run on them, they provide explanations that seem legit. However, when these models run on independent data set, they work poorly. How do you? tackle such situations?
Um, Yeah, well, we do the test. We do it on the client's specific data set, not with open data sets or third-party data sets. So we try to see how well the model works for the client's data set and how, and of course, we cannot say how well it generalizes in all data sets out there. Um, so that is why we check the performance of the model and the performance of the traits in order to give a more, let's say, complete picture of the model's behavior. But as I said, we are in the stage of testing and auditing the model. So we let's say our tooling and how we work right now is not monitoring continuously the behavior of the model, so we can tackle these issues as Kuntai refers to. What we advise the teams, of course, is to look for data or a model drift to identify if there may be problems when the system is operational and probably the nature of the data changes or the model changes.
Yeah, so there was like lot of drifts we have observed during COVID. So
Yes, exactly.
I didn't ask this question. So what would have been your recommendation to your clients, like to build an automated pipeline, or like retrain? How do you go back to the clients and say, or how do your code for third works for drifts? So.
Yeah, we consciously made the decision to focus on the audits and the tests. So one thing we are doing with some clients is, of course, we don't like monitor. We're not an MLOps tooling provider or someone who does continuous monitoring. But on the other hand, we have the ability to run uh, some checks like every 1 month or once per quarter to see if there are changes in the model and its behavior and how this can be uh, and if we see visible problems in its behavior. What we suggest to the teams, of course, is to have this kind of monitor, um, and have these kind of checks in order to see if there are drifts in their models and the data the models utilize. Interestingly enough, we've seen teams that are proactive and they are very conscious about that, and we've seen also teams that they haven't paid any attention to that.
So then they will go back and check whether there is a
Yeah.
data drift or as a model drift, and then address those parameters.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I mean, there are pros and cons with each approach. The Let's just say that if you want to monitor the behavior of a model, you lose, let's say, the depth of the test. I mean, if we want to, by doing the test and having all the data available, and sometimes also you can have the ground truth of the model, so you can do a more thorough work. This helps the test. Now, about the monitor, there are cases that you don't have the ground truth, you don't have all the data in place. So there needs to be a balance between the constant monitoring and the testing and the auditing the model thoroughly to see what can be the problems. So I would say that there needs to be the tests and the audits with the monitor needs to be complementary to each other.
Makes sense. And what is your idea, like what is your opinion, rather suggestions, like how chat GPT and like large language models will change the landscape for auditing and the testing processes? Means it will be really tough, right, to bring in all the best
That's
practices. Yeah.
That's the headache of the day. Let's just say how you test those models, because right now I would say the ability to test them properly lies heavily on the tester, so on the human side. So what kind of prompts or questions you might want to think in order to be able to test ChatGPT's behavior or its ability to generate stereotypes. So I mean, And this is an open question to the community, like industry and academia. A paper about that, about auditing large language models, just came out last week
Oh, is it?
from Luciano Floridi, Jacob Mokander, and et al., which provides an interesting approach on how to audit these kind of models. I can share it to you. I can share to you the title so you can download it. And I think it's an interesting approach. But the thing is that these things come as we speak. Right now, we are trying to build the car that will get us there, like by being able to audit any type of AI system, being a large language model or deep learning or something else.
Yeah, that's going to be revolutionize. I think the scope of response being responsible, how much we are responsible, and bringing in all the factors. Because in large language models, if there is a scope that the data has been trained, the model has been trained with any kind of bias, it will be reflected in shape and form, and we will even not even understand without.
The thing is that about large language models, I think the paramount importance is to understand where the model has been trained. So, and for that you need transparent. The company that trains it needs to be transparent. I mean, to give you an exhaustive list of all the data sets that they use to train the model, to see also if there are legal risks or not. So, for instance, Copilot X, which is kind of utilizes ChatGPT, there are companies that they are refusing to use Copilot X for their developers because they are afraid, they are very reluctant, as they don't know all the corpus of the source code the ChatGPT has been trained on and whether there are legal risks there. Because if, let's say, the code that the Copilot X might suggest to my developers and it is, let's say, and it has some IP rights, then there may be problems for us. So
Mhm.
still we are, of course, we're entering uncharted waters here. So we need to, let's say, devise the tooling on how to audit those things as we go.
Yeah. And what will be the approach for data scientists and the people who are emerging in want to make a career on this? So, do you want them to be like? What is your advice? Should they concentrate on basic machine learning and the seven pillars, or they should be rather looking forward to more research and finding out that what tools, new tools and technologies that they can bring in? When there are Shapely, Lime, we do know those tools, or should we there should be we need more research on the interpretability of deep learning models.
Okay. I think all the data scientists and all the engineers, the first thing they need to do is to study social sciences, or at
Mm-hmm.
least take some. They need to understand better humanities. They need to better understand social studies, political studies. They need to get a grip on that
Mm-hmm.
because it is very relevant nowadays to understand better the impact of the technology they will be building. Uh, that's one. The other is to stick to the fundamentals. As an engineer, you will always find the best of breed. Every other year, there are more better tools, better processes, better libraries, better frameworks, better everything. So if you understand the fundamentals, then you can make the best use of what it comes out. So for me,
Mm-hmm.
the fundamentals is things like the ones presented in your book, which has a very nice, let's say, comprehensive presentation of all the aspects that somebody, of all the fundamentals that somebody needs to know in order to build and govern AI systems, and the rest will follow. So we need better grip on the social aspects and humanities. We need a grip on the fundamentals of good engineering, and the rest will follow.
Definitely. So, if we are concerned that we are good environmentalists, we are citizens with greater sixth sense and we should be responsible for everybody as such, then of course it will follow that we are auditing our systems and finding out even we have a lower accuracy, but the model is more robust, model is more fair, and
Yeah,
that's the
and there
value.
needs to be some balance. I mean, let's say the trade-off between performance, accuracy, and all those things. I mean,
Mhm.
it needs good engineering, and you need to find that right balance.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So, what else do you think that we should be concerned about with the large language model being rapidly changing the ecosystems? We have a lot of technological changes happening in place, like those real-time systems, driverless cars, digital twins, blockchain. So, can we also start with we're looking at those systems where AI is used and build out more rigid policies and governance, like what Code for Thought is doing, like rigorous testing and auditing?
Mm, I mean, the way I see it, I mean, the sky is the limit. The
Sky is the
technologies
limit.
technology is progressing that fast, so it creates more and more, let's say, opportunities for new professions, for new types of jobs, and I think the main bet for me is how diverse the skill set of a person is, because I think we're moving away from the purely technical engineer,
Mhm.
software engineer or machine learning engineer, and we will be moving to something which may require social skills, to understand better the context, technical skills, creativity skills. Because I mean, for instance, if you want to test a large language model, you have to be creative.
Definitely.
So you need to have all those things.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what my thought process, and I that's how I see and ask you, try to learn from you, and hope that it helped the community and we will be sharing more insights about what Code for Thought is doing. So if you're okay, Yanis, we can share the link for Code for Thought,
Yes.
the session webinar which you have shared with me, and definitely you can go back to Yanis and ask questions what they are doing and how, yeah, Code for Thought can help,
Yes,
right?
please do. I mean, my contact points I think are in the presentation, so feel free to contact me. I'm on LinkedIn, so yeah,
Yeah. And then this is a never ending conversation, so there's so
true.
much we do on the bias, fairness proxies, fair representation of data. I think we cannot end this conversation here, but anytime you feel like, get in touch with Yanis and he can provide his framework and tools and technologies to help you. Yeah, thank you. Anything you want to add, Yanis?
No, it was a great pleasure for me being at your podcast. I also like a lot the book about responsible AI. I think it's a very good guidance for somebody who wants to either a company like ours who evaluates AI systems, or internal teams of organizations who want to build a process around responsible AI. I think you did a great job there.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you.
And
Yeah, so
thank you for the invitation. And I hope we can talk soon or exchange views, because
yeah, yeah.
it's nice to keep the lines open with all the community.
Yeah, definitely. So, if anything your Code for Thought is new doing, you want to share with the community, just let me know. Just I'm
Yes, I mean
message again.
we are in the process of building some cool stuff, so we will let you know.
Yeah, so we can again have some podcasts, and the entire community can be cheered up with the message that what you're doing.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you so
Okay.
much. Yes.
You're
Yeah,
welcome, Sarmista. Take care.
thank
Bye.
you. Bye bye. Bye bye. Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye.